Hi, I'm Chef Mike, and I'm here at East Central College, and we're continuing our field to fork demonstration with the Missouri Department of Conservation. And today I'm going to be focusing on the hind legs. And what I've done is I've cut a couple of nice cutlets out of some of the roast from the hind leg, and then taken those and with the meat hammer and further tenderized and pounded out nice scallopinis. Okay, and what we're going to do with those is do a 3-stage breading procedure on them and give them a nice quick fry. We're going to pair that with a little dirty rice and a braised collard green. So give it a little southern style flavor. So what we're going to do first, again, I'm going to start with my knife cuts, and I'm going to pass them off to my sous chef here, Robert, and he's going to continue them for me. So what I'm going to do first is I want a nice small dice on my onions. Okay, so about 1/8 of an inch. All right, so I'm going to cut down about 1/8 of an inch all the way down that onion, but I'm going to leave about the last 1/4 of an inch connected, and that keeps that whole onion together so that I'm able to cut it. All right, and then come back the other way, and then come back for a nice small dice. All right, so there's the onion. And then peppers. You may have seen me do this before. I do a little top and tail. And then I come down the side. And then I basically just start to flatten that nice rib of pepper out. Okay? And in doing so, removing all the seeds and innards. All right, and with that, I'm going to come back, and again I want a nice small dice, so I'm going to cut them about 1/8 of an inch sticks, and then come back 1/8 of an inch cubes. All right, so there's the dice on my pepper, if you guys can see that. And I want to get it pretty small because this is going to be folded into the rice. I want a little bite to it, but I don't want it to be too tough. Celery, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut nice manageable sticks, about 1/8 of an inch wide. And after that, 1/8 of an inch dice. Okay? So again, nice consistent cuts. I want everything to be the same size. That way it all cooks the same. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to Robert and let him go ahead and finish. And then I'm going to come over here to the collard greens next. And the collard greens, what I've done is I pulled out all the stems. A lot of people throw these away. I do not believe in throwing anything away. I want to dice them up nice and small and set them aside, and I'm going to kind of saute these with my onions as I cook it. And that adds a nice little texture. Again, we're not wasting anything, and they hold a nice flavor as well. All right, so we'll give those a nice dice. And then with the leaves, okay, so you can kind of see the dice here. And with the leaves, I'm going to kind of grab a little pile of them and do my best to go ahead and cut them into about 1-inch pieces. Okay? And you could do that. You could cook these leaves whole for a good couple hours and allow them to slowly break down that way. You can break them down further with your knife to kind of speed up the process. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pass these off to my other sous chef here. Or actually to Robert here. He's going to finish up the leafy greens. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the stems so I can start cooking those.
Thank you, Chef.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, so let me get these guys. And I don't think I'm going to use all of these stems. but we're gonna use a good portion of them. So I've got my stems chopped up, and then I have here a little tasso, and this is smoked pork jowl, okay? And it's just rubbed with a really heavy seasoning spread, and then it's smoked till about 100 or 165 degrees. Pork jowl is very fatty, which is great for braised greens. They enjoy the complement of having a little bit of fat in there. So I'm gonna do a little bit more of a medium dice on this. And then I'm gonna slowly kind of render this out. And this is gonna be very similar to, say, bacon, but it's gonna have a different spice mix on it. All right. Tasso goes into my cast iron pan. And we're gonna go ahead and let that render. And once we get that started, I'm gonna show you guys how to do the 3-stage breading with the cutlets. So again, there's a lot of beautiful fat here on these jowls, so I'm gonna let that kind of render. I have a little bit of rendered tasso fat already, which I'm gonna use for my sauce. So I'm gonna wait a minute to add that to the saucepan. And once I get all of this going, we'll start on the cutlets. And then anytime I'm doing a chicken fried, I like to pair that with a little white gravy. It's just a very traditional accompaniment. So I'm gonna use this rendered tasso fat to start my roux for my gravy. And I got a little bit left, so I'm just gonna give that to the greens. And again, those greens are gonna really appreciate all that fat. Wet spatula, hot grease. So again, a roux is fat and flour in equal parts. And basically I'm forming what looks to be like almost peanut butter. And I cook that for an extended period of time until I get a nice almost crumbly, doughy substance. It looks like I had a little too much flour, so I'm gonna go ahead and reserve the rest of this. Oh yeah, that's looking nice. All right, so I got my roux over here from my tasso. And I'm gonna add cold milk to that. And what I'm making here is called a bechamel sauce, okay? That's basically milk thickened with a basic roux. And it's the basis of all of your gravies. And what I do is I add cold liquid to hot stock. Or cold liquid to hot roux, I'm sorry, in hopes that the roux will thicken the liquid. All right. Turn down our, can you do a rubber red spatula? All right. So my tasso's nice and rendered. Good time to go ahead and add my stems in there. How's Robert doing on? I got my garlic over here. Okay, and again, I'm a big fan of garlic. And especially for something super hearty like these greens. Oh yeah, that's looking beautiful. Get a little bit of heat under there. All right. Go ahead and get a little heat on my rice pan, and then I'm going to show you what I'm doing with the cutlets. I'm going to remove my cutting board, give my station a wipe. Okay, I like a nice and clean station.
Here's your Holy Trinity.
Thank you, Trinity. And then I'm going to ask you to go after this one pretty quick. So I'm going to add that first round of collard greens in there. Again, much like the spinach, I just want to let it wilt so it kind of is able to incorporate with all the flavors. And then we'll lid it up. All right, now the fun part. And this one is a little bit messy. So I'm going to demonstrate one, and then I'm going to pass this off to my assistant Jill. And Jill is going to finish it up for us. So I'm going to do what's called a 3-stage breading procedure on this. And that is typically a seasoned flour, egg wash, which is a mixture of egg and milk, and then back into a breadcrumb. Okay? So what I want to make sure I do is that I get a nice even coating on all this. All right, so my seasoning mix, I got a little Cajun style blackening mix in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this my first coat. And then we're gonna go into the egg wash. And because I'm doing so many of these, this is the setup I like to use. I like to use something with a lot of surface area so that I'm able to clearly coat the product with it easily. And then as far as the egg wash goes, I pour this into a hotel pan with a perforated pan so that I can just give it my flour dusting, introduce it to here, and then go ahead and pull it up and let all that egg drain off of there. And then into my next flour mixture. And then rather than using breadcrumbs, I'm staying with that kind of Cajun Creole motif and going into a little bit of flour and cornmeal for that final bread coat. So again, kind of spread that out, keeping an eye on my greens. And then I just added a little venison stock to my greens. I took all the leftover bones I had, I roasted them up, tossed them in a couple gallons of water, and let them simmer for a good amount of time to extract all the remaining collagen and flavor from those bones. All right, so I got my 3-stage setup, all right? And I want to go from left to right. All right, and then I mentioned before in our previous video we did the fabrication and we took those nice leg roasts and we were able to procure some beautiful little cutlets, okay? And I'm about 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe a little bit less. But again, nice pat in flour. And what I'll probably do, again, because I have this large saute pan, or hotel pan, I can lay a few of them in there and bread a few at a time. And this is making things a little bit easier on me. All right. So again, with these cutlets, I cut about a 1-inch medallion and we ended up pounding those out. So again, my first dredge in flour, dusted off all the remaining flour into the egg wash. You watching, Jill? Because this is coming your way in a minute. How you doing on the greens, Robert? Would you mind go ahead and put them in that cast iron? All right, so we'll lay those in there. Turn these for the rice. Lay those in there, and again, in the hotel pan, move them around a little bit. And then what I do is I pull them up and allow them to drain. And then from here, I'm able to go into my second coating. All right, and once it's all said and done, you should have a nice chicken fried look going on there. All right, and that cornmeal is just going to add another element of crispness, kind of keep that southern flavor going. So you get the gist on the 3-stage breading. And then I am going to pass this to my sous chef, Jill. Grab it right there. First flour, I'll keep that one real quick. And it's really important that you do this dusting procedure because otherwise you end up with clumps on there. It does not fry evenly. And I tell you what, both of you guys can pitch in on this one if you're done, Robert. Have one person doing the egg wash portion and it's cleaner. Got it? And then you'll need another half sheet tray for you because I'm bogarting that one. Hand washing. All right, so I've got a couple of breaded cutlets here. And while they're finishing up the rest of my cutlets, I'm gonna go ahead and start these because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fry them in a couple of different batches. They're very thin, they're not gonna take long to cook. The only problem is, much like most fried food, they don't hold very well. So I'm gonna start that in a minute after these guys get a little bit more headway made. In the meantime, I'm coming back to my stove. Gravy looks all right. Greens kind of need to bust a move. Oh, but they're gonna be so good. And I'll take my lid for my Dutch oven. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start our rice and then we'll get our frying going. All right, so for the rice, I'm doing a little dirty rice, and I usually do this with day-old rice. Much like fried rice, it really lends to the process a lot better by having something that's already cooked rather than trying to cook it with all the flavors in there. So we'll get a nice hot pan going. A little bit of olive oil in there. Just enough to coat the bottom. And then Robert had my We call this the Trinity vegetable. It's a mirepoix, which typically is carrots, onions, and celery. But the Trinity vegetable is a Cajun mirepoix, which is green pepper, onion, and celery. Used a lot in Southern cooking, Creole cooking. Just really lends to the flavors again. All these flavors get along very well. And a little bit of garlic. I always tell people that they should moderate their own garlic because I like to use a lot. Sometimes even excessive. All right. So my mirepoix is going. I am going to finish my gravy with a little bit of hot sauce. Okay, I'm going to add about, we'll do about a nice teaspoon in there. Give it some flavor. All right. Oh, and that just smells nice. All right, so a little salt in my sauce. A little pepper in my sauce. And then it looks like my roux ate up my milk pretty quickly, so I'm just going to add a little bit of water to kind of thin this out to get that nice viscosity and allow that flour to cook out of there. Because anytime you're doing a roux thickened sauce, you want to make sure that you cook it long enough, because that raw flour flavor is very intrusive. It's not welcome with a lot of other flavors. All right, so I got a nice caramelized on my Trinity veg and my garlic here. I'm gonna add a little bit more oil to the pan. And you know what, believe it or not, a little more garlic. That's what I want. That's what I want, Robert. We're doing it. All right, and then we're gonna take into our caramelized veg here, we're gonna take our already cooked rice. All right, so right now, every ingredient in the pan is cooked fully. I'm just reheating it. I would hate to see somebody try and do this with raw rice, because it's not gonna work. I'm gonna go ahead and save my pan. Give it a good shake. And then I'm gonna kind of drain off that liquid from my tomatoes and let it deglaze. How you doing, Jill? All right. And then Jill's all finished with our cutlets, so we can start frying here shortly. And a little tomato. And then I have a little bit of fresh oregano to finish my dirty rice with. Taste on this to make sure we're cooked fully. Maybe a little bit more. I'll tell you what, that'll be done by the time it cools for a minute. A little salt. A little pepper. And then I'm gonna go ahead and remove from the saute pan back into my hotel pan, and then I can go ahead and hold this hot. Oh, and you can just smell the oregano in here. All these flavors are just great friends. Got my rice. We'll just hold that hot. All right. Miss Jill, can you grab me 4 little coffee cups? And then Mr. Robert, if you can wrap this guy for me. Might be a little warm. All right, coming into the final stretch here. We're just gonna check everything for seasoning once again. Make sure it's where we want it, and then we can start frying our product. So one of the things I'm gonna check first is gonna be my sauce. I wanna make sure this sauce has good flavor to it. I usually do a little bit of lemon juice in there to kind of cut that. Yes, sir. And that's good. One more taste here. Check my greens. Oh yeah. And they got a lot of caramelization going on in there. Oh, that's beautiful looking. And these greens are gonna take a while to cook. So that's something, again, when we do meals like this, if you wanna do something, prepare some of it ahead of time. We call it mise en place. But it just makes your job a lot easier if you can go ahead and one day make your braised greens. And then the next day, fry your cutlets. All right, so again, we're looking at our cutlets here. I'm gonna take these. And then Robert, I think you can probably lay out the plates for us. All right, gravy, I think you're good. One more taste. And you're gonna see me taste my sauces a lot. Again, I think that's a point where you can either succeed or fail on a plate. Couple of cranks of cracked black pepper. Okay. Maybe another little splash of 2 ounces of water. do it for me. All right, greens are about done. Sauce is done. Rice is done. Let's fry. All right, so again, anytime I'm trying to fry, I gotta make sure that my oil is a correct temperature. You're never gonna experience frustration quite like trying to fry in oil that is way too cold or way too hot. So what I usually do is I'll start preheating my oil, and then I'll just take a little pinch of flour. And if that flour doesn't start to sizzle right away, it's not hot enough. If that flour burns instantaneously, it's too hot. When it's all said and done, we want to keep that temperature about 360 degrees for frying. 360 degrees will be ideal for frying. Again, it's really important to taste your food for a couple reasons. Seasoning, obviously, but also doneness. Okay, I want to make sure I have the right textures present. Wow, that's great. Those greens have really taken on the flavors of the tasso fat. They're kind of bitter, but at the same time kind of pleasant. And those diced stems in there add a little bit of texture, which is fun. What we're gonna do now that our oil is at the proper temperature, we are going ahead to start introducing our cutlets into the fryer oil. And what I do here is I introduce it into the oil using the swimming method. And what I want to do is I want to swim it away from me, okay? Because I want that to go ahead and lay down in there and not splash the oil towards me. I want to splash away. Okay, and again, the good news is these are very, very thin, should cook very quickly. And that's why we make sure everything else with the meal is finished already, so that all I gotta do is fry these guys, and then I'm ready to plate. Change my gloves. Oh yeah, I'm getting a nice fry in there. Again, you gotta make sure that oil is the correct temperature, guys, or you're not gonna end up with the desired product. And I wanna fry them long enough that it fries out most of the moisture, so that I don't end up with a soggy cutlet. I want a nice crispy cutlet on the plate. While these guys are frying, I'm gonna step over and I'm gonna start plating up so that as soon as they come out, they can go on the plate. All right, Miss Jill. Here's what I want, ladies and gentlemen. All right, while Rob and Jill finish our plates, I'm keeping an eye on the cutlets, and they look great. They're getting golden brown, nicely fried. And then you guys can pull the 4 cups and then refill 4 more. All right, and as they finish up these plates, this is our first batch of cutlets that came out of the oven here. Beautiful golden brown. And a lot of times, with things I'm pulling out of the fryer, I like to finish them with a little bit of lemon. It just helps kind of cut that fattiness to it, as well as the gaminess of the venison. So it's just a nice little finishing element. And then to finish these guys, I take 2 nice cutlets on top of each other, and then give them a nice little stagger there. And then we have our lovely chicken fried steak. Dirty rice, collard greens, Southern classic. Enjoy.